Hi, it's B. I'm going to pray a blessing over your New Year's Eve or your New Year's Day. For me, it's already after midnight. So my new year has already begun. And I've written an update to the article, and this is going to be only a quick summary of the update. I'm going to make the longer version early in the morning. And the title of the update is The Prince of Peace Lifted Up. And of course, as we can read in Luke 21:28, the Lord instructs us to look up because if we lift up our heads, we're going to see our redemption drawing nigh. We look up unto the Lord, into his beautiful face, but also into the heavens, into the gospel written out in the stars, but also the end times, prophetic signs and seasons, the appointed times. Everything is written in the heavens. So the transition from December 31st to January 1st, and of course the pictures of endings and new beginnings. How the Bible speaks of this transition between the 17th day of Tevet to the 18th, but also what the world events and what the elite think of the transition between December 31st and January 1st. We're still in the month of Dan. That is the forerunner tribe and the tribe associated with judgment. So in the transition from December 31st to January 1st, we see a division marked on December 31st and the onset of judgment on January 1st. So especially when we look at the signaling going out by the UN, their Declaration of Human Rights, which in and of itself is a replacement of God's 10 Commandments. So if you go back into the history of the UN, you can see how their formal documentation aimed to replace the 10 Commandments. And the drafting of the text was on December 29th, 1941. And the declaration was signed by those nations participating in its design on January 1st, 1942. And in the heavens, this event is visually anchored when the sun is at the end of the race. Remember how we shared last time that the sun is actually crossing over the celestial river, just like Jesus said that after Hanukkah, John 10, the Feast of Dedication in Jerusalem, which he participated at for a different reason than their celebrations. Afterward, when he disappeared suddenly out of the grip of the Sanhedrin, who wanted to stone him, he went to the place where John baptized. That was at the river Jordan, at the place called Bethabara, and he crossed over the river. And that is what we see the sun do as we speak. It is about to finalize the crossing over of the river, and that is done over the crown of righteousness laid up. That is the crown Paul speaks of. Believers are awarded at the end of the race. So the UN wants to hijack the Lord's glory, and their logo is an emulation of that crown of righteousness underneath Sagittarius. This is just another way they want to hijack the Lord's glory in the design of the Freedom Tower, symbolizing a syringe, but also the synthesis of as above, so below. And the top of the spire is exactly aligned with the trajectory of the star Sirius, and that is the Prince of Peace. So the brightest star in the star cluster Canis Major, which actually represents a hawk, not a dog. We covered that in a previous article. And this star is at its highest every New Year's Eve. So the Prince of Peace is soaring high in the sky. And I believe that is a representation of the midnight call to the bride. So Tevet 17 and 18, December 31st, January 1st. The end is in sight. Division and judgment are on the horizon. So Tevet 17 is New Year's Eve this year. carrying with it a strong predictive programming of division and judgment of the spiritual harlot. The apple drop in New York is a foreshadowing of the splitting of the apple, the onset of judgment, when the Lord is going to cast his first stone of judgment at the harlot, because we know it's going to be the Lord that starts judgment. He's the only one eligible to throw the first stone. And the 17th of Tevet is highly ritualized by the international community, the UN especially. The coronavirus pandemic is marked on the 31st of December as well, because in 2019, the so-called first case of the Wuhan virus in China was discovered. And exactly 1 year later, the first emergency use validation of the COVID-19 injectables, they label as vaccines, but no, they're not. And if you want to read more about the vaccines, what the impact is, but also how that relates to the Bible, you can go to my COVID-19 page. And another place in the world where the elite are heavily marking December 31st, but also the Star Sirius, because London's Big Ben will chime once again to usher in the new year with a new clock face after having been silent for almost 4 years. And it resonates with the celestial midnight cry of Sirius climbing to its highest altitude on New Year's Eve, as it's going to be explained below. We know that London's ground plan is an emulation of that hawk star asterism we now call Canis Major. And the brightest star of Canis Major, Sirius, is actually the Fire of London monument. And on top of the Fire of London monument is a crown, and that is the design which gave birth to the spiked design of the coronavirus we've been inundated with for 2 years now. And the Fire of London monument is on Trafalgar Square in London. If you want to know more about how the Star Sirius, the coronavirus, how those two elements are connected in the elite's doctrine and how that relates to the City of London, you can click on the linked articles over here. So the design is directly connected with the pandemic, which honors the satanic elite's cloaked god Janus. Janus is the highest god in the Roman pantheon, the two-headed god of portals and gates, and the first day of January is his quote-unquote sacred day or holy day, which is the 8th day after Christmas. And of course, Janus is the name giver of the month of January. If we're then looking up at what the heavens declare for the coming weekend and the week afterward, I shared in a community post earlier this week some amazing pictures from Comet Leonard, and it's going to be very prominent in this update. Leonard radiates and Sirius is at its highest. So Leonard, the strong lion, has a majestic long tail, but it has also severed portion of that tail, and that happened the past week. So I included a couple of really interesting and beautiful pictures of Comet Leonard, the strong lion with the majestically long tail. And it has actually ruptured the past week. So here you can read about the overview of the development of Comet Leonard and its twofold tail in the beginning. And since then, we have seen a rupture of a substantial portion of the tail of Comet Leonard. And this is where the comet is now positioned, the incredibly long tail, and the tail is now crossing Fomalhaut. That is the brightest star in the constellation Pisces Austrinus. That is the big fish underneath Aquarius, and that's the recipient of the living water of God. So that is what the strong lion the comet Leonard is now signaling. So this is the pathway of comet Leonard from Christmas to January 3rd. And this is Pisces Austrinus, the southern fish underneath Aquarius, where Jupiter is still at the mid-body section of Aquarius and the brightest star Fomalhaut. And we covered last time how that is connected to the sign of Jonah. The moon bride redeemed. So what happened with the moon this week? It emulated the trajectory of the overcoming bride, having departed from, remember the last time, that beautiful Bethlehem alignment of the Magi's Christmas visitation. That was marked in the constellation Virgo with above the man-child. The same man-child that the Magi of old, the Magi from the east, the astronomers from the kingdom of Parsha, how they followed the king planet Jupiter traversing through the heavens and standing still exactly over the house where Jesus and his parents resided on Christmas in 2 BC. So the moon has passed from that Christmas alignment in Virgo under the guidance of the Good Shepherd. So the Good Shepherd is the constellation Bootes over the constellation Virgo, and that is where there is currently a meteor shower. So the Lord is shining his flashlight on the Good Shepherd exactly at the transition from the Feast of Dedication to the Son and Bridegroom crossing over the celestial river. And then the moon went onward to the four-cornered altar of redemption Libra. That was yesterday. Libra reflects the pyramid section in the heavens and the location where the Lord paid our bride price in full. And today the moon conjuncts with and occults Mars. Mars is the planet associated with war and also with the Archangel Michael standing up. And she's done so after overcoming Scorpio's heart star Antares. And this a partial occulting of Mars is visible in parts of Australia, in the region of Adelaide, and in the southern ice ring around the Earth, or from a heliocentric perspective, from a portion of the South Pole. And then onwards to the Eye of the Hawk, the Prince of Peace, shining brightly mid-heaven, the New Year's Eve star. Sirius has its midnight culmination at its highest point yearly, every New Year's Eve. And it represents the Hawk Star, the bright-eyed Prince of Peace, currently depicted as a dog star. I think that is to mock God, changing the word God to dog. So Sirius is highest in the sky at midnight every New Year's Eve. Astronomers call this midnight culmination of Sirius. As the new year rings in, Sirius is at its highest. By midnight, by the way, we mean in the middle of the night, midway sunset and sunrise. Just like the sun, the stars rise in the east and travel westward across the sky. When the sun or any star is in the eastern half of the sky, it is climbing upward. Happy New Year from my son. When the sun or any star is in the western sky, it's descending downward. Midway between rising and setting, the sun or any star reaches the highest point in the sky. We can picture the hawk climbing to its highest altitude before coming down to snatch. So we recall how the Word of God speaks of the midnight cry of the bridegroom. And we know that the sun is one emulation of the bridegroom. It has just crossed over the celestial river, which is a sign of transition, of entering into the promised land, of Jesus going to where John baptized after the Feast of Dedication. And then Sirius, the hawk star, is the at its highest in the heavens on New Year's Eve. So I believe this double confirmation of a midnight cry is something we can rejoice in, but also be mindful of, that time is very, very short. So here we see the pyramid section in the heavens, in between Libra, the altar of redemption, and Ophiuchus. That is where the moon was yesterday, and Mars is hidden just over here. So here you can see why this is called the pyramid section of the heavens, with the crown, Corona Borealis, right on top, as well as the serpent's head wanting to seize the crown. So the area in between Ophiuchus and Libra and above Scorpio is called the pyramid section in the heavens, with the serpent's caput, the head of the serpent, and the crown, the victory crown, he wants to seize from us. Some notes on the altar of redemption, if you'd like. And tonight, Zenaya, that star, in a 144-degree angle, is exactly at meridian. And it is just before dawn, and here we can see the moon has conjuncted with Mars over the heart star Antares. So the moon is only visible with a very small sliver, because as the moon is traversing toward the sun, the crescent is getting thinner and thinner, and at the moment of closest approach to the sun, we are not able to see the moon for a couple of days. So the conjunction of the moon and Mars was December 31st in the late evening. For me, it's already in hindsight. And then the occultation of Mars by the moon. And that is visible from portions of Australia, Adelaide, and the southern ice ring, and then onwards to that beautiful star Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky unto early dawn. And of course, it aligns with the belt stars of Orion. This is the constellation Orion with Betelgeuse and the belt stars. If you are to continue that line, you will end up at the Pleiades, the seven churches, also referred to in the book of Revelation when Jesus addresses the seven churches and instructs them to overcome particular sins, and promises to these overcomers from the five churches who are reproved, and one of them is rebuked. That is the church of Laodicea. If people come out and overcome, partake in the characteristics of the churches of Philadelphia and Smyrna, the church of brotherly love, and those who are persecuted and those who endure under persecution. And again, the elites attempt to stress the importance of Sirius, but also their attempt to cover it up and to hijack the glory of God emulated in that particular star. And Sirius is actually a binary star. So if you look up close, you sometimes can see an even more beautiful picture. In this case, there is Sirius A and Sirius B, and they are dancing in like a perpetual dance around one another. And when I was looking at that, I could not think but anything else than the Lord and his bride. So the brightest star Sirius, the head of the hawk, is going to be at meridian in Jerusalem just before midnight, 11:15, 1 minute to 11 in Giza, which is close by, but it has different latitude. And in New York, it's going to be after midnight, 5:59. So just before dawn. And on January 2nd, the dark or hidden moon is going to be at perihelion, closest to the sun, and at perigee, which means closest to the earth in Sagittarius, next to the brightest star named Nuki, and that is similar to the name of the hawk star, but this star is named the Prince of the Earth. So Comet Leonard is at perihelion too. So closest to the sun on January 2nd in Pisces Austrinus. We showed that previously. And it also marks the heart of the hawk constellation Sirius being highest in the sky around midnight. So first, On New Year's Eve, so tonight, the Hawkeye star is going to be highest in the evening, and one day later, the heart cluster of the Prince of Peace is going to be highest in the sky. And then the Lord shines his flashlight on the Good Shepherd booties. We covered that previously. I'm not going to cover the celestial signs for the coming week just yet. I'm going to do that in tomorrow's video, along with the visuals and the biblical references to the 17th and 18th, and then a sneak peek to the coming week. So I pray a blessing over your evening, and as we may be able to look up, and if there's not too much smoke in the air because of fireworks, we may be able to see that bright star Sirius. And as we look up into the heavens and see how God is raising up that star emulating his Son, may we lift him up in prayer. Lord, thank you for being so faithful, so loving, for singing over us, for comforting us when we are under persecution, in trials, when we suffer division, when we suffer loss. May we put our heads into our necks, Father, and not let our heads fall, but look up into the heavens and seek your face, seek your fellowship, seek your closeness. Thank you so much for all my brothers and sisters who come together on this channel. May we cover one another, Father, in prayer, in support. So if you have a prayer request, put it in the comment section, and other brothers and sisters will pray for you and will comfort you in need be. And I'm, of course, going to do my best to do that as well. So thank you very much for visiting. And I pray a very blessed start of the new year toward you. Much love.